morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the Water and Land 9:30 agenda. Today's Thursday, February 9th, and our first bill up is House Bill 761 relating to aquatic resources. And first, we have testimony from DLNR.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Laura Ka'akua, the Governor's nominee for the Deputy Director of DLNR. We stand on our support, our testimony and support. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next, we have testimony from Hawaii State Ahamoku.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Leimana Damate for the Hawaii State Ahamoku. We stand on our testimony of support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Matthew Geyer, individual in support. That's everybody who signed up to testify on House Bill 761. Anybody else wishing to offer testimony? Seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to House Bill 758 relating to Native Hawaiian traditional and customary fishing practices. Testimony first from DLNR.
Aloha, DLNR stands in our testimony in support, but I also wanted to clarify here a point from our testimony that allowing the department to issue special activity permits for the purpose of exercising traditional and customary fishing practices does not in any way add a requirement that one must have a special activity permit in order to exercise traditional and customary practices. Our intent here is simply to make it easier for fishers who anticipate having a potential issue with law enforcement so that they would be able to easily and quickly explain to law enforcement that they are exercising traditional and customary fishing practices and are therefore protected by the state constitution. I'm available if you have any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next, we have testimony from Hawaii State Ahamoku.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Leimana Damate for the Hawaii State Ahamoku. We stand in support of this bill. However, we would like to just caution that when DLNR is giving these permits out, that they identify the exact place where the person wants to exercise their rights. And if they are not from the ahupua'a that they wish to fish in, then the protocol calls for kupuna or konohiki of the specific site to be consulted. We have found too often people who are Hawaiian do not understand the natural resources of an ahupua'a comes with cultural responsibilities. Ahupua'a have traditional gathering rights that are protected by the konohiki or lawai'a of that place, and just fishing, even if one is Hawaiian, where one wants without asking is considered mahaoi. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. That's everybody who signed up to testify on House Bill 758. Is there anyone else wishing to offer testimony on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions?
Thank you, Chair. I guess for ahupua'a information.
Ahamoku?
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Monte.
Ahamoku information. How does one know if they're from there or not?
They would have to identify themselves. If an enforcement officer comes, he could ask them. They would have to identify themselves. That's the only flaw we could see in this bill, is that.
Well, I have a problem with that because I'm trying to think. I'm Hawaiian. I'm not sure
Right.
where I'm from, what ahupua'a. I know where I was born, but I feel like I should have a right to go anywhere. Not necessarily, fish anywhere, but.
Oh, you can go anywhere or gather.
So this is only if you get cited.
That's only if you get cited. Yeah.
And
you
then
know.
when you take it to court, how do you prove something like that?
When you get cited, that's when you would have to prove it.
And it's up to the person?
It's up to the
prove it?
person to prove it, yes.
And how would
This-
that person prove that?
If they know the area, this is to protect the area where one wants to fish. If they know the area, then there shouldn't be a problem. you know.
Well, many of
because-
these people know the area, but they don't necessarily know who that who Pua'a person might be, or who, who identifies them as belonging there.
Yes, that is true. That is true. If they get cited, then they would get cited because they're doing something wrong anyway. Most people who go, they would not get cited. But if they do, they're overfishing or they're doing something that's wrong that an officer sees, that's when you would be able to ask them
Okay.
if they, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move on to House Bill 1405 House Bill 760 relating to aquatic resources. We have testimony from DLNR.
The department stands on our testimony and support.
Great, thank you. Next, we have testimony from CGAPS.
Aloha Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi Poi, members of the committee. I'm Christy Martin with the Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species. A little more awake now, so mahalo. CGAPS is in support of this bill. We wanted to just mention, though, that the Division of Aquatic Resources doesn't have all of the authorities, all of the rules that they need to be able to quickly respond to an aquatic nuisance species outbreak. For example, that stony coral tissue loss disease, scuttled, that I mentioned earlier. So we are looking for ways and vehicles to be able to make sure that they get that authority. This may not be the right one, we agree, but we're looking to you folks and to our partners at DAR to make sure that that is taken care of. We do have some urgent invasive marine species issues that we're grappling with, and having those additional authorities would be helpful. Mahalo.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. That's everybody who signed up to testify on House Bill 760 today. Anyone else wishing to offer testimony? Yep, please come forward.
Aloha, Chair. Vice Chair. Matt Geyer, testifying. I signed up to testify for 761. I apologize for being late.
Oh, this is,
Yeah, I just wanted to submit my testimony for this and any other bill that cares for our reefs, which are in severe danger due to pollution, climate change, and overuse. Thank you.
okay, got it. Thank you, Mr. Geyer. Anyone else wishing to offer testimony on House Bill 760? Seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move on to House Bill 1405 relating to natural resources. And first we have DLNR.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Cleo Manuel, Deputy with the Water Commission. We stand in support of this measure, offer comments and an amendment. The amendment is to add Department of Health in consultation with them to develop this study, and here for questions.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from University of Hawaii Manoa Water Resources Research Center, Dr. Thomas Giambaluca on Zoom.
Aloha, I'm Leah Bremer, faculty with the University of Hawaii Water Resources Research Center. I'm testifying on behalf of the Water Resources Research Center, and we stand on our written testimony and support and are available to answer questions.
Okay, thank you very much. That's everybody we have signed up to testify today on this measure. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1405? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to House Bill 906 relating to the Commission on Water Resource Management, and testimony from DLNR.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair. Again, Cleo Manuel, Deputy with the Water Commission. We stand on our written testimony, appreciating the intent and offering comments, and are here to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else would like to offer testimony on House Bill 906? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to House Bill 1088 relating to declaration of water shortage and emergency. DLNR.
That's why I stand in the front row. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. We stand in strong support of this measure and are here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Then Board of Water Supply, Mr. Lau.
Aloha, good morning, Chair and members. Ernie Lau, Manager and Chief Engineer for the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. We'd like to offer some comments on this bill. This bill would allow the Water Commission to declare a water emergency without prior water shortage rule declaration by rulemaking. We have all seen in the last year that the Red Hill situation has been unprecedented for our community. a direct threat to our VI, and the importance to deal with that situation and protect the water resources. But one of the other things that we've advocated for 9 years with the military is the issue of transparency. We really need the process to be transparent. So our thoughts on this is that we feel that, you know, the statute as written is adequate. And if there's a need to exercise under an emergency condition, there's also the authority of the governor to exercise Chapter 127A to declare an emergency. The other thing, too, having worked for the Water Commission as a deputy for a short period of time back in 2003, and I think it's the same thing with my friend Kaleo Manuel, the current deputy. The commission is terribly understaffed, under-resourced. So the need for a water shortage plan at the state level is very important statewide. But please also consider providing adequate resources for them to accomplish that. Those are my comments. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mr. Lau.
Thank you.
That's all the testimony we received on House Bill 1088. Anyone else wishing to offer testimony? Okay, members, any questions? Yep, Rep. Gagnon.
So, Mr. Lau, thank you for your continued service to the community.
You're welcome.
Did the present rule slow down the response to Red Hill?
I can't speak for the commission, but you know, for the Board of Water Supply, we already have in place some rules in place. We responded quickly, kept our board apprised of the situation, and tried to be as transparent with our community as possible. Even when our water shortage plan was proposed for the board to adopt the shortage plan, we put it out and held a public hearing. We haven't moved forward with the rule adoption process yet. That's the next step. But we wanted to be transparent to our community.
Okay. And you don't think that this rule would hinder your ability to be transparent or the resources that you might need to continue to have those meetings with the community?
I value, and actually I'm not in charge of the commission, so that's DLNR. But I do value our partnership and collaboration with the commission and DLNR. I think that going through a process that allows public input to be made before an action is taken is appropriate, especially when it comes to water shortage. And for the parallel example of the Board of Water Supply, one of the things about water shortage plans, when things get really bad, it's the issue of mandatory restrictions on water use. Or in this case, it may be mandatory restrictions or changes to the water use permits on how much people can pump out of the resource. Those things, I and my board, took it very seriously. Before we take that step, we have to be transparent to our community. We have to give people adequate notice that this is being considered. And under emergency conditions, that can be challenging, but I think it's still possible.
Okay. I believe Halava Shaft, which gives Honolulu around 24% of its water, is still closed as a result of the Red Hill emergency. So, is Honolulu in an emergency right now? Do we have a water shortage?
There is a water shortage condition in effect already in Honolulu, but it is one where we're in the alert and not critical stage. So we're monitoring how much our other well pumps that make up the loss of capacity with the shutdown of Halava Shaft, how they're running in terms of how many hours a day do they have to pump to keep up with water demand. So what we did was also to implement requests to our community to conserve water, to reduce their usage, lower the peak summer demand so that our pumps don't have to run 22 hours or more, which would be a critical condition.
Could we see an emergency this summer?
We will be facing challenges every summer, it really also depends on the severity of the weather during the summer months, how dry, how hot it will be. So we see challenges every summer that we're going to be ramping up again our requests for conservation to our customers. In the meantime, we're doing the parallel track of developing new water sources, and I think a bill coming up is asking for the state's kokua to that effort.
Okay.
So, Representative, I hope I answered your questions.
You did, thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lau,
Thank
for your
you.
testimony. We'll see you for the next bill. Okay, moving on to House Bill 1511. This is relating to water resources. First up, we have testimony from DLNR.
Well, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, the department stands on its written testimony supporting this measure and offering an amendment. Thank you.
Very much. Okay, testimony from Board of Water Supply. Thank you, Mr. Lau.
Thank you, Chair and members. Ernie Lau, Manager and Chief Engineer for Board of Water Supply. We strongly support this measure as our testimony has been submitted. It will help to develop 7 new monitor wells that will help to identify where the contamination that emanates out of Red Hill is moving deep underground in the aquifer, and also help to the prior discussion about developing more source capacity to replace capacity that we have currently turned off because of Red Hill. We really appreciate the legislature's help in this. We've been using BWS ratepayer funds to front this and to move forward. We'll continue to do that. We're also seeking federal funds wherever we can find funds to help defray the cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lau. That's everybody who signed up to testify on House Bill 1511. Anyone else wishing to offer testimony on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay.
So, Mr. Lau, sorry for making you sit down and stand back up. You're getting
No,
you're getting your
I get a lot of
exercise.
exercise this way.
I'm sorry
Thank
about
you.
that. You know, I'm concerned about the Board of Water Supply's use of ratepayer funds, and the fact that you have to ask the federal government for funds, considering the millions of dollars that were promised to the community as a result of the Red Hill emergency. I'm having a hard time tracking where all that money is gone. If it's gone all to the Navy, if it's gone, if any of it has gone to reimburse the Board of Water Supply or the Department of Health, you know, for this emergency that was the admitted cause of the Navy. If you have those numbers, how much has been spent by the Board of Water Supply since November 20th, 2021?
Representative, I thought I was in front of the council. Sorry. I don't have a number for you, but we've had to spend money for design consultants to go and locate new wells, to design monitor wells, new exploratory wells to be drilled. We've also continue to test the water. I don't have a number for you, but I can get that number to you. We have not received, just to clarify, any federal dollars as of this time.
No federal dollars.
No federal dollars. But we continue to work and outreach to our congressional delegation to see how they can get those federal dollars to us.
Okay. Was that earmarked in the federal legislation?
I can't answer that question, but I believe in the FY23 federal budget, through the help of our congressional delegation, they were able to get $1 billion allocated to the Navy.
To the Navy.
Yeah. I think the University of Hawaii and Department of Land and Natural Resources have received some federal funds through various Navy programs, and we're kind of looking at that if we can apply. I did ask our 3 admirals to their face if they could pay and reimburse us the costs of our monitor wells, for example, that we're drilling, about $1 million per monitor well. They haven't given me a positive answer.
How much do you foresee this grant and aid costing? I mean, like, what's the number?
This is $10 million. When we look at just the cost to develop new water sources to replace the over 13 million gallons of supply capacity that we lost, our very rough estimate is close to $200 million to do that. And our request is not for that money, though.
So this is $10 million to do essentially the monitoring wells to follow the plume of petroleum products through the aquifer in Lower Oahu, essentially.
Through that area, in that Red Hill area, so it's we're looking at wells, monitor test wells on both sides of the Red Hill facility, Mauna Loa Valley and also Halawa Valley. What's very important is to define the nature and extent of the contamination that has been released out of the Red Hill fuel facility in recent years, like in 2021, but also going back in time, because in time, their documented releases have been like over 180,000 gallons of fuel. Where is that in the environment? And is that like a ticking time bomb ready to move with the aquifer at different times and contaminate, reach different wells? So drilling these monitor wells will help define what is happening. The Navy is also drilling monitor wells, but Board of Water Supply, we're contributing to the effort because it does two things. It basically tells us what's happening and what to anticipate. That where is this plume moving? That's the $1 million question. Where are the plume or plumes moving that emanate out of the Red Hill facility? Also, it's important to use these monitor wells to draw a strong nexus to what has happened at Red Hill to the impact on the public's water resources. And it also drives the effort forward to try to clean it up or remediate it. Right now, if they try remediation, they're like throwing a dart against a wall without a target because they don't know where the plumes are located.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lau.
Any other questions for Mr. Lau so we don't make him come back up again?
If I could just say, I don't have all the answers, and I apologize, but and I've maintained this from the very beginning. It's very urgent that the nature and extent of the contamination be identified as quickly as possible to our water resources, because the longer it takes, my fear is that the military, and I'm not saying they will do this, but this is one of the fears I have, having dealt with them for 9 years now, is that the longer we wait, the bigger the case they'll make to say that, oh, because my well in Aiea or Halava detected petroleum in the water, they're going to say, well, it didn't come from us because it could have come from any place else, like gas station or any place else. So the longer we wait to actually characterize the nature and extent of the contamination, the stronger I think we're making the case for the Navy to make excuses.
I think we have a question, Mr. Lau, from
Yes.
I have a question. Thank you for explaining that. It prompted a question. I generally just want to know, I know I've been in correspondence with you about an unrelated matter, but it begs the question as to how do we know where the aquifers are, say, on Oahu? That was, the issue that we had corresponded about. Is there like a map? Is there some sort of resource where we know where all the different aquifers are?
I'll say I point to my associate, my friend Kaleo Manuel, the deputy director. The Commission on Water Resources has that information on their website, including a map of the entire island showing the different hydrologic units and aquifer sectors. It's well defined.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lau, for being here today. Appreciate your testimony.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Okay. Members, we're going to move on to House Bill 892 relating to small boat harbors. Let's see, we have testimony from Heidi Speedy on Zoom.
Hi, I'm Heidi Speedy. I stand in support or by my written testimony in support of Bill 892 and can answer questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's see, that's the only person who signed up to offer testimony today in person. I'm sorry, on Zoom, offer testimony today on House Bill 892. Oh, I'm sorry?
We got Zach on Zoom.
Zach on Zoom.
Good afternoon, members of the committee, Chair, Vice Chair, Zach LaPrade, submitting written testimony as a recreational user and a commercial user of Maui small boat harbors. Standing on my written testimony, available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaPrade. I don't see your written testimony here. If you can just please resubmit that to the committee.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom? Nope. Okay. Anybody else who would like to offer a testimony on House Bill 892? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to House Bill 894 relating to whales. We have testimony from DLNR.
Aloha. The department greatly appreciates the intent of this measure to safeguard humpback whales, but is opposing this bill as impractical to enforce. We do have Brian Nielsen here from the Division of Aquatic Resources, should there be questions. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. We have testimony from the Ocean Tourism Coalition on Zoom.
Yes, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Denver Kuhn here on behalf of Ocean Tourism Coalition. We've submitted testimony in opposition to this bill. Same reason DLNR, we think it might be impractical, well, not only to enforce, but also for many operators who have schedules. 6 knots is about 7 miles per hour. It's very slow. And we don't know how this would also apply during emergency situations when vessels need to move faster. We also have concerns relating to even inter-island shipping and how this would affect those costs. So we would request that this bill be deferred. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kuhn. Is everybody who signed up to submit testimony on House Bill 894 today? Is there anyone else who'd like to offer testimony on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to House Bill 1134 relating to Kaneohe Bay. Testimony from first DLNR.
We stand on our comments. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next, we have testimony from Hawaii State Ahamoku.
Aloha mai kako, Chair Ichiyama and Co-Chair Poi Poi, members of the committee. My name is the Aloha Rocky Kaluhiwa. Mahalo for giving me the privilege to speak. I stand by my testimony, but I'd like to give comment. Born and raised, our generational family, our family's been there over 300 years now in Kaneohe Bay. In 1990, we got the communities together from every single ahapua'a. I think there was like maybe over 100 people at one time at meetings to give input to a law that they put together. It took over 1,500 hours of meetings. I think it's Act 208, the Kaneohe Bay Master Plan has been in place, and sadly, the Department of Land and Natural Resources don't have the adequate door care. They don't have enough officers to enforce the law. Today, many of the tourists come here exploiting our resources to pat their pockets. This has to stop. In Kaneohe, the master plan says that they already have commercial businesses in place at the time, and each of these commercial businesses was given a permitted reef to do their business. Today, there's parking all the way down past they have this quarter-mile strip. All of the illegal people coming from all over off the bay, they take up all of the room on Ahu'ulaka. To us, it's a sacred place. It's better known as a sandbar. And in the master plan, it says you got to leave that place open for the general public, especially on 3-day weekends and holidays, Sundays. That was the deal that we negotiated with. This past Sunday, we had somebody from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs doing talking with people from the community that sit there, the retirees. People were telling them that they no longer go to Ahu'ulaka because they're being bullied by illegal commercial businesses, and that's not fair. I mean, the person that did that interview came to tell me, she said, "Did you know this is happening?" I said, "Yeah, we know this is happening." And it's got to stop. What's happening is they're doing it by social media. They're saying, you don't see the cash flow, they're not doing illegal businesses. I had my niece call, she's from Arizona, to make an appointment, arrangement, or, to get on the boats. And this is what they told her. We're doing this online. You got to pay us online. When you get there, wait by this certain area. If they ask you what you're doing, you go on the boat with your relative. So this law will put it in place, and I ask that you support and pass this law. Mahalo.
Thank you very much for your testimony this morning. Everybody, we have signed up to testify today on House Bill 1134. Does anyone else would like to offer testimony? Okay. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go next to House Bill 1090 relating to ocean recreational permits. First up, we have DLNR.
Aloha. The department stands in our testimony in strong support of this measure.
Thank you. Ocean Tourism Coalition.
Yes, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. OTC here, we would stand on our written testimony. This was a bill that we worked with DLNR, kind of help craft and create a seniority-based permit system, though the end result will be there will be some people that will not receive their permit next year. So we know it's kind of a difficult situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from Jim Kuhn, Trilogy Excursions.
Aloha, Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi Poi, members of the Committee on Water and Land. My name is Jim Kuhn, and I am concerned with this bill. And I want to preface this by I appreciate that DLNR DOBOR was willing to work with OTC to try to come up with a compromise, which does try to resolve the issue in various ocean recreation management areas where DLNR DOBOR issued more commercial permits than were allowed by the rules. And there's only a few areas in the state where this has happened. And I don't believe that DOBOR needs to create a whole new system of managing permits to solve this oversight. I'm especially concerned about the auction and the lottery. The Ocean Tourism Coalition did work to come up with a compromise, which was basically a seniority system based on the waiting list approach, sort of that DOBOR has traditionally used. And that it's fair in that sense that the people that have invested the longest, been there the longest, permitted the longest, would be the ones that they got to keep the permits, but the recent comers would not have a permit and would sometimes maybe lose their business. I think that's unfortunate. But I think that the other part of the bill that really concerns me is the bill in particular, which says that the permits will be issued to the amount allowed by law, and this is the part that concerns me, or determined by the department to be a reasonable number. And I am just concerned that this could allow the department to reduce permits on numbers below what the administrative rules allow and cause a greater harm than necessary. And it just seems that this overreach is sort of an unfettered discretion on the part of DOBOR that it just wouldn't be appropriate. And so thank you for letting me offer my mana'o on this, and aloha.
Thank you, Mr. Kuhn. Next, we have testimony from Calypso Charters, Zachary Laprade.
Thank you, members of the committee, Chair, Vice Chair. We are in support of the testimony offered by the Ocean Tourism Commission, the comments therein, and issues raised therein, and are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's everybody who signed up to testify on House Bill 1090. Anyone else would like to offer testimony on this measure? Okay, members, any questions? No, seeing none, we're going to move on to House Bill 1089. This is relating to a state boating facility lease pilot program. Testimony first from DLNR.
Aloha, the department stands on our testimony and strong support. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next we have UPW.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kamakana Kaimaloa, Government Affairs Manager for United Public Workers, testifying on behalf of State Director Kalani Werner. You have our written testimony, strong opposition. We would just like to note one of our primary concerns, and that is in Section 1 of this bill, it proposes to amend HRS 76-16, subsection B, in a way that would codify the privatization of some of the duties that have traditionally been performed by civil service employees. And this provision has been crafted so that this exception would exist in statute beyond the completion of the proposed pilot program. Considering this, we believe that if this bill is passed, DOBOR will be provided with the authority to eliminate civil service positions long after the 20 years prescribed in this measure. If stated simply, our concern is that this bill uses Hawaii civil service law to eliminate civil service positions. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Kamaloa. Okay, next we have testimony from Trilogy Excursions, Mr. Kuhn on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair Ishiyama, Vice Chair Poi Poi, members of the committee. I would like to propose that if DLNR DOBOR wants to get out of the harbor management business, that this go back, at least the commercial harbors go back to DOT harbors that's what they do. they run harbors. They run them well. They have the expertise, the funding, and the infrastructure to do a good job there. So that's my comment. It's I think that at the end of the day, the state should continue to operate all the harbors and the launch ramps. That's my opinion. Aloha.
Thank you, Mr. Kuhn. Next, we have testimony from Margaret Hallahan on Zoom. Oh, not present. And then testimony from Scott Allen.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to submit testimony. My name is Scott Allen, and I've been a resident of Hawaii Small Boat Harbors for over a decade. I work as a project analyst at the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, and today I'm offering my personal testimony in opposition of HB 1089. My opposition of this bill rests on the desire to allow DLNR to lease any harbor entirely without legislative oversight or acceptable parameters to ensure equitable operations. Among the small boat harbor fee users are residents who have called the harbor home for decades. For them, a change in leaseholder means a change in landlord, potentially resulting in a loss of their home if the new leaseholder prohibits living on your boat or increases rent without restrictions. DLNR proposes to self-report to the legislature on findings and recommendations from the pilot program without offering metrics for how successes or failures would be measured. These metrics should be determined ahead of considering a pilot and crafted alongside the harbor community to ensure reporting reflects the successes of all users, including those who call the harbors home. The need for oversight and parameters for equitable operations of our small boat harbors can be illustrated in policies that were put in place during the midst of the pandemic's economic shutdown. While the former governor called for a moratorium on rental evictions, DLNR doubled the effective rent of harbor residents with almost no notice to those it would impact most, forcing many disabled and elderly who are on fixed income to abandon their homes due to racking up fees for late or non-payment. I oppose this bill and encourage you as well until DLNR can work with the harbor communities to create a clear image of what leasing a harbor in its entirety looks like for various users, as well as how success would be collectively measured as serving the broader public interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Allen. That's everybody we have signed up to testify on House Bill 1089. Anyone else would like to offer testimony on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Rep. Gagnon.
The Deputy Director. Morning.
Aloha, Representative. I do have Ed Underwood here if there's a very specific question about harbors.
No problem. In your testimony, you note that the COVID-19 pandemic shed light onto the fact that the department did not have the flexibility and capacity to adapt business operations, but we just heard from one of the state's leading unions that this is going to lead to a loss of civic positions, concerns from folks who live in the harbor, one of which is in the district I represent. Do you think that this, in lieu of this bill, we could just support the department in staffing so you can address these measures instead of turning it over to the private sector?
Sure. Good morning, Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi Poi, committee members. Ed Underwood, I'm the administrator with the Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation. We've been attempting to do that for 20 years now. Most every state in the nation and territory does not run their own harbors. These are small businesses. So what we're proposing to do, we have 5 harbors now in the state that are run under the same model, and they work very well, very effective. It's part of our strategic plan where we'll then be able to have effective harbor management, and our staff will then be able to focus on ocean recreation management. It's a win-win. No union employee is going to lose their job. They'll all keep their jobs, and it'll also help us with, for instance, we're closed on weekends and holidays. We've tried to hire private sector to come in, janitorial service, to assist us with the management of the maintenance of the harbor, but the unions have grieved that and said no, they don't support it, that they prefer that we hire more staff. We've come before the legislature to hire more staff, but we don't get the positions to hire. So we're in this catch-22. The strategic plan will help address all the small harbors in the state. And if I could add, the Department of Transportation Harbors Division carved out all the state's small boat harbors because they didn't want to deal with the small harbors. They only wanted to deal with the commercial harbors. We've reached out to all the states. We work with all 50 states and territories, and this is the model they use. Kewalo Small Boat Harbor is an example. La Mariana, K Marine Center, Waikiki Yacht Club, Hawaii Yacht Club, Coco Marina are all on the public-private partnership, and they all operate very well.
Do any of those public-private partnerships implicate residents, people who live on their boats? Have their rates increased?
Yeah, there's only 2 harbors in the state of Hawaii that allow liveaboards, Alawai Small Boat Harbor and Kehi Small Boat Harbor. These are, the ability to stay on your boat is ancillary to your mooring permit. They're never intended to be your house or a residence. It's just a matter of you could stay on your boat if you went out fishing late and all. What we found is people in these 2 harbors have turned their boats into basically floating condos. They don't use the boats. They're not following the statute that requires you to leave the harbor at least once every 90 days. We require it at least once a year to renew the permit, and that's about the only time they ever move their boat out of the harbors because we require it. So I've advocated for years now that we should not have liveaboards in the 2 state small boat harbors, and we haven't issued liveaboard permits in almost 4 years now.
Would the public-private partnership essentially do what you're asking to do, which is end the liveaboard process and program?
No, it would not, because that is in statute. It allows up to 129 liveaboards in the Alawai and up to 35 liveaboards at the Key Small Boat Harbor. And a private vendor would be able to determine, do you want to offer all 129 liveaboards? They have the option to do that. And regarding fees, the Board of Land and Natural Resources will maintain oversight over all of these small boat harbors. So an entity can't come in and just say they're going to raise fees. It's got to be justified before the board.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions on House Bill 1089, we're going to move on to House Bill 1101 relating to stormwater fees. Testimony from Ed Sniffen, Department of Transportation.
Aloha Chair Ichiyama and members of the committee. I'm Dre Kalili, the Deputy Director for Harbors Division. Thank you for hearing this bill. This is an administrative bill included in the governor's package at the request of DOT. And basically what we're trying to do is acknowledge that in the past, right, we try to create some efficiencies in our stormwater infrastructure, and our stormwater drainage systems are interconnected to that of the city and county of Honolulu. And under the fees that are being considered and proposed by the city, we will, incur a fee to basically allow stormwater that comes through the city's system, it empties into our system. And so just to, manage our operating cost and expenses, we're looking for an exemption so that we're not incurring fees from a decision that was made long ago, right, for efficiencies in how we manage stormwater fees. And so across the 3 modal divisions at DOT, we all have responsibilities because we all have, storm sewer system permits that require us to do quite a bit of work. In our testimony, we outline our estimated annual expenses for these maintenance tasks. And, we're in advance of the proposals that I think the city is considering and prior to adoption, we're just looking to make sure that there is like a backstop to make sure that our, costs are managed, or at least there's some acknowledgement of the work that we are doing in managing stormwater systems. So we do acknowledge the testimony in opposition. However, if the committee is inclined to advance the bill for further discussion, in our testimony we outline a proposed amendment that it's not a substantive amendment, but it does clarify and I think make it a little easier to read the amendment to the statute that we're proposing. And I'll just leave it at that, and we'll be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Director Kalili. Next, we have testimony from City and County of Honolulu, Department of Facilities Maintenance. on
Yeah.
Zoom.
Hi, this is Don Sefcik. Good morning, Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi Poi, and members of the committee. My name is Don Sefcik, and I'm the Director and Chief Engineer for the City and County of Honolulu, Department of Facility and Maintenance. We stand on our written testimony submitted in opposition of HB 1101 and want to testify remotely to further emphasize our opposition of the bill. Our city storm drains, streams, and drainage ways benefit all people living on Oahu and is a shared asset available to all people and businesses of Oahu. Because it is a shared asset, we need all property owners, including federal and state, to share responsibility and contribute toward the management of stormwater on the island. The private taxable residential property owners should not be solely bearing the burden of the cost. Under the proposed stormwater utility, everyone would pay a fair share based on the stormwater runoff generated from impervious surfaces. There would also be opportunities for credits and a reduction of fees available to all property owners to make it equitable and affordable. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this measure and standing by for any questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we have testimony from Evan Oi in Nayap, Hawaii. Thank you very much. Next we have Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation of Hawaii on Zoom. Is he in the Zoom room? Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. This is Jade McMillan on behalf of the Tax Foundation of Hawaii in place of Tom Yamachika this morning. We will stand on our written comments submitted on this measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's everybody who signed up today to testify on House Bill 1101. Anyone else would like to offer testimony?
Thank you, Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi Poi. Ted Boland on behalf of the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition. I served as a Deputy Attorney General doing clean water matters for 15 years, and I think I even had an action against DOT harbors because they were sending their stormwater waste into the cities. So this is an issue I've seen for some time. My view is that the state should...
Mr. Boland, can you let us know if you're in support?
I'm sorry. I'm in opposition
Thank you.
to the bill. I should say that up front. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm in opposition because the state should do its part to work on stormwater. I think the city is appropriately handling this, and the state should do its part by paying its share of the costs. So that's the reason for my opposition. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Boland. Anyone else would like to offer testimony on House Bill 1101? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to House Bill 1078 relating to the Water Pollution Control Special Fund. We have testimony from Department of Health.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Darrell Lum. I'm the Acting Chief at the Department of Health Clean Water Branch. The Department of Health strongly supports HB 1078. We believe that by creating this special fund, we will be able to conduct better water quality management and pollution mitigation activities to be more responsive to incidents that impact water quality across the state. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Lum. Okay, that's everybody who signed up to testify on House Bill 1078. Anyone else wishing out for testimony? Members, any questions? Okay, moving on to House Bill 1021 relating to funds. Testimony from Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. Administrator Barros on Zoom. Not present. Okay, their testimony in support, and then DLNR in support.
The department stands on our testimony in support, and Michael Walker, State Protection Forester with DLNR, is here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's everybody who signed up to testify on House Bill 1021. Is there anyone else who'd like to? Oh, yeah.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Sabrina Nasser, Deputy Director for Department of Budget and Finance, and we stand on our testimony in support.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else would like to testify on House Bill 1021? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? I do have a quick question for Deputy Director Nasser. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry it didn't say you were going to show up, so
no problem.
Appreciate you being here.
Yes.
So just want to clarify, this bill would amend a prior budget that has already been passed.
Yes, exactly. So what this bill does is it reinstates 3 provisions to reinstate those into the budget bill. And so those provisions are they have generally been in previous budget bills. They were removed in last year's budget bill, and this bill reinstates this for the upcoming fiscal biennium.
That was going to be my
Or,
question.
sorry. No, this bill reinstates it for the current budget bill
So it's
for FY23.
the current fiscal year
Yes.
that we're in now.
Yes.
Okay. So that being the case, what money do you need to move around?
So this bill reinstates 3 provisions. One of those provisions allows departments with the ability to transfer funds between program IDs. We are currently asking departments if they'll need to use that transfer authority. And so we expect that Department of Human Services may need to move funds between program IDs. And previously, Harbors Division generally used that provision. And so in addition to this bill, which reinstates those provisions, we also have 2 other bills that are emergency appropriations that allow transfers in Q3 and transfers in Q4. But we are currently checking with departments to see if they will need to transfer this fiscal year.
Okay, so mainly you're thinking it's for DHS and DOT Harbors?
Yes, yes.
And that's to respond to what emergency?
For DHS, I would have to get back to you. I believe they have a lease payment that they need to pay out of one program ID, and they're short in that program ID, and that's why they would need the ability to transfer the funds. But I can get those details. And just to clarify, DOT Harbors previously used this authority. In terms of who we've talked to this year, it was just DHS.
Got it. Yes, if you could provide that information to my office, and then we'll distribute it to the committee members.
Okay.
That would be very helpful.
Okay, thank
you
you.
so much. Members, any other questions? Oh, okay. Administrator Barros, did you want to offer, or Adam?
Aloha to the members of the committee. Administrator Barros sends his apologies. We've got the administrator of FEMA coming in from Washington today, and he's prepping for that meeting, so I'm standing in for him. Appreciate your attention. We have submitted written testimony in general because the purpose of this is to allow for the state to better cope with disaster response. We prefer to err on the side of flexibility and voice our support for this bill. Happy to answer any questions the committee members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Weintraub. Members, any questions for Haima? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. We're going to move on next to House Bill 1034 relating to emergency management. And Administrator Barros or his representative, Mr. Weintraub.
That would be me again. Let me pull up my copy of our testimony on this. This reproduces some of the provisions that the PDM committee approved for modifications to Chapter 127A last year. That bill was vetoed by the previous administration among a disagreement over a provision that was inserted during the committee process. This reproduces many of the non-controversial elements. They are intended to more closely align the state functions and the authorizing legislation with the way the system actually works and provides alignment with the federal FEMA funding streams. Happy to answer any. There's also, I believe, a much debated provision regarding the length of price controls and designating which commodities are to be covered by those emergency rules if they are extending beyond 72 hours. So this is effectively our annual cleanup bill, and happy to provide what information I can on anything the committee needs to know more about.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next, we have testimony from General Hara, Department of Defense. On Zoom? Not present? Okay, thank you. Then next, we have Retail Merchants of Hawaii, Tina Yamaki. On Zoom?
Aloha, Chair and Vice Chair and members of the committee. Mahalo for this opportunity to testify. We are in strong support of this bill. As the law currently reads, when emergency proclamations are issued, the price of all commodities has to be frozen from the date of proclamation. And as we've seen during the recent pandemic, every time these proclamations get extended, it also extends the freeze of pricing. And we're aware that emergencies and disasters are very different, and their needs may be different. It's different if you have a volcano erupting versus a hurricane or a tsunami. Or even a pandemic, and retailers are uncertain how this provision applies and to which commodities. We are especially in support of the language in Section 3 that requires the governor and the mayor to specify what goods and products. Because something like baby diapers, the cost doesn't have to be frozen if it's a pandemic and you're looking for more like masks and PPE products that more or less have to be frozen on those types of products. And we would like to point out that the majority of the retailers during any time of an impending or during an emergency or disaster, we do not price gouge our customers for items that include but are not limited to things like bottled water, toilet paper, cleaning supplies, or batteries. Retailers are often falsely accused of price gouging when customers pick up cases of water that are larger or higher end products that are cost more than the smaller generic size. And we all know when we go to the store, you can either buy a $10 t-shirt or a $1,000 t-shirt. So we truly appreciate this bill and we hope that you pass it. Mahalo.
Thank you, Ms. Kimaki. That's all the folks we have signed up to testify on House Bill 1034. Is anyone else here who would like to offer testimony? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go on to House Bill 1035 relating to Homeland Security. First, we have Hawaii Office of Homeland Security Administrator Frank Pace.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Frank Pace. I'm the Administrator for the Office of Homeland Security. I stand in support of my written testimony regarding this measure, and I will just add comment that regarding critical infrastructure and this specific information, it is imperative that we are able to have the trust of our private public owners that we work within the critical infrastructure community regarding this specific type of information that is very sensitive to their facilities as we work together with them to ensure that we understand vulnerabilities and threats and to be able to further protect the critical infrastructure within our state. I will also add that this was within best practices from other states and across the country to specifically outline this particular type of measure to ensure that we are protecting that proprietary information. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Administrator Pace. Next, we have testimony from General Hara, Department of Defense.
And I will be representing the Department of Defense and General Hara. General Hara stands on his written testimony in support of the measure.
Perfect, thank you. Next, we have testimony Hawaii State Energy Office, Joseph Calavita on Zoom.
Morning, Chair. This is John Chin standing in for Joe. The Hawaii State Energy Office stands on its written testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, everybody signed up to testify on House Bill 1035. Oh, Mr. Lau, let's testify.
Aloha, Chair and members. Ernie Lau, Manager and Chief Engineer for the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. As an agency responsible for critical infrastructure, what more critical is than our infrastructure to deliver safe and dependable and affordable water service to our community?
Mr. Lau, you in support?
I actually would request consideration of amendment here. I support, I think, the measure, but I think it's only solves half of the problem. Because when you think about it, yes, if the Office of Homeland Security requests critical infrastructure information from the Board of Water Supply under this statute, we could give it to them and know that it was protected. But what is protecting the information with the critical infrastructure provider? That's the Board of Water Supply or others like Hawaiian Electric. It would be great if this could be considered to expand this to actually cover the critical infrastructure information on the providers of that critical infrastructure also. That is a issue that we've wrestled with, so I just ask your consideration of that amendment.
Thank you.
So we support with an amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lau, appreciate it. Anybody else would like to offer testimony on House Bill 1035? Keep seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to the last bill on our agenda, House Bill 1036 relating to Homeland Security. First up, we have Department of Defense General Hara or his representative.
Good morning again. Frank Pace representing General Hara. He stands in support of his written testimony.
Thank you very much. And Administrator Pace, if you want to speak on behalf of Office of Homeland Security.
Yes, ma'am. I do stand in support of my written testimony, and again, we'll add with comment the importance that the Fusion Center plays for our communities here in the state of Hawaii, not only in direct support of our public safety partners like police, fire, and emergency management, but also, just as we just discussed, critical infrastructure partners, public health, and our educational community working to help prevent targeted violence and being able to provide resources. So this measure does bring that measure of recognition by the state for the Fusion Center's existence, which has been in for over 10 years. And we look forward to your support on this measure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Administrator Pace. And I believe that, oh, no, sorry, one more. Retail Merchants of Hawaii, Ms. Tina Yamaki. Oh, not present. Okay, testimony and support. That's everybody who signed up to testify on House Bill 1036. Anyone else wishing out for testimony? Seeing none, members, any questions?
I would note that if we're in the bunker, they have all our servers up there, and the AC does tend to be cranked. So if you are not well padded, like
Mr. Weintraub, I think you were not muted. Sounds hot. Okay. Anybody else wishing to testify on House Bill 1036? Seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to recess for decision making. Recess. Okay, we're reconvening our 9:30 agenda for the Committee on Water Land for the purposes of decision making. Thank you so much for all of our testifiers who came today and also are on Zoom. Starting off with House Bill 761 relating to aquatic resources. Chair's recommendation is to pass this out as a House Draft 1, defecting the date to June 30th, 3,000, and then putting the amount of $500,000 into the committee report. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 761 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Chun.
Aye.
Representative Ganadin.
Aye.
Representative Hashem.
Aye.
Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Representative Takayama.
Aye.
Representative Souza.
Aye.
The chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, House Bill 758 relating to Native Hawaiian traditional and customary fishing practices. We had a good discussion on this one. I think there's still some details that need to be worked out. So I'm going to recommend that we pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to June 30th, 3000, also adding technical non-substantive amendments, and a note for the next Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs to look at some of the concerns raised by OHA and Ahamoku. So it may be more appropriate for them to take up those questions. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 758 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations?
Reservations.
Noting reservations from Representative Ganadin. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. House Bill 760 relating to aquatic resources. Recommendation is to pass this out as a House Draft 1. We're going to take DLNR's proposed amendment to delete Section 3 as it's already in another bill that we passed out this morning. We're going to defect the date to June 30th, 3000, as well as technical non-substantive amendments. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 760 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to House Bill 1405 relating to natural resources. We are going to, is this one? You're good. Yeah. Refer to the Vice Chair.
The amendments recommended are taking the DLNR amendment to add Department of Health, defect the date to June 30th, 3000, blank the appropriation and add $250,000 to the committee report. No technical amendments. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to take the vote. Voting on House Bill 1405 with amendments, are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next is House Bill 906 relating to the Commission on Water Resource Management. This one needs a little bit more work, so we're going to defer decision-making on this bill until our Tuesday agenda, which will be in this conference room next week, Tuesday the 14th, I believe it is.
Yes.
Tuesday the 14th. And it will be at the end of the 9:30 a.m. agenda. Okay, deferring to time certain. Next is House Bill 1088 relating to declaration of water shortage and emergency. Chair's recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1 defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1088 with amendments, are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, voting on House Bill 1511 relating to water resources. Chair's recommendation is to pass this out as a House Draft 1. We're going to defect the date June 30th, 3000, adding in technical non-substantive amendments. We're also going to put into the committee report the amount requested by Board of Water Supply is $10 million. And then I'd also like to note in the committee report that Finance may want to consider adding in some language or consideration in the bill to seek federal reimbursement for these costs. Members, any questions? Rep. Van Uden.
I found this bill quite troubling in that the state taxpayer, as of right now, is going to be paying for monitor wells to find where the petroleum plume that entered our aquifer as a result of the Red Hill crisis is going to be paid for by us, not by the U.S. Navy. This is a big deal. I hope that the legislature continues to track it and the community continues to track it so that we don't get led astray. Thanks.
Thank you, Rep. Van Uden. Members, any other questions, comments? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1511 with amendments, are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, voting on House Bill 892 relating to small boat harbors. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1 defecting the date June 30th, 3000, and technical non-substantive amendments. Are there any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 892 with amendments, are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to House Bill 894 relating to whales. Chair's going to defer this bill given the testimony that any type of vessel restrictions are not enforceable. Okay, moving on to House Bill 1134 relating to Kaneohe Bay. Chair's recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1. We are going to add a definition of commercial ocean recreational equipment, referencing the current language on pages 9 and 10 that describes the type of ocean recreational equipment that could be involved. We're going to defect the date to June 30th, 3000, as well as technical non-substantive amendments. I'd also like to note Department of Land and Natural Resources comments and concerns in the committee report. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 1134, are there, with amendments, are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. We are voting next on House Bill 1090 relating to ocean recreation commercial permits. I recognize that this is a very difficult situation for all the parties involved, including the permit holders as well as DOBOR. So the recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1. I'm going to insert a delayed implementation date for Section 1 of July 1, 2024. I'm also going to add in a Part 2 to this bill to create a task force to look at this issue, and it sounds like there still are some concerns that need to be worked out. And so we are going to have a working group under DOBOR to include the Ocean Tourism Coalition, as well as 2 current ocean recreation commercial permit holders and a representative from the Attorney General's office. And the scope of work will include issuance of new permits, renewal of permits, and the factors that are being considered when an area is limited in the number of permits that can be issued. And we're going to ask that there's a report to the legislature November 1st, 2023, so we can come back again to this next session. Okay, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1090 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, voting on House Bill 1089 relating to a state voting facility lease pilot program. A lot of good discussion on this one. Chair's recommendation is to defect the date, June 30th, 3000. And HMSO also suggested as a drafting note to put the pilot program into the Hawaii Revised Statute, since it's going to be a 20-year pilot program. I'll note the concerns raised in testimony in the committee report for the next committee to consider. I think this is a work in progress. Members, any questions, comments? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 1089 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations?
Reservations.
Noting reservations from Representative Ganadin, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much, members. Okay, moving on to House Bill 1101 relating to stormwater fees. Recommendation is we pass out a House Draft 1, taking the amendment, the technical amendment from DOT, and defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Any questions, comments? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1101 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. House Bill 1078 relating to the Water Pollution Control Special Fund. A very controversial measure. We're going to pass out a House Draft 1, defect the date to June 30th, 3000, and technical non-substantive amendments. Members, any questions?
Okay, voting on House Bill 1078 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, moving on to House Bill 1021 relating to funds. Recommendation is to pass this out with a defect date, June 30th, 3000, and technical non-substantive amendments. And also note in the committee report the testimony from Budget and Finance regarding the need for Department of Human Services for this language to transfer money between program IDs. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1021 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. House Bill 1034 relating to emergency management. As noted in testimony, this is a rerun, so to speak. We're going to try again with this measure to clean up our emergency management statute. So chair's recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1. We're going to add in 2 new sections, also from the bill that was vetoed last year, which was Senate Bill 3089, Conference Draft 1, if anyone wants to look it up. We're going to add 2 new sections. The first section is to amend 127A-1, subsection C, to add that this chapter shall be construed in accordance with the Hawaii State Constitution. And then the second new section is to amend HRS 127A-14, subsection C and D, to clarify that the mayor or governor have the power to extend or terminate an emergency proclamation. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 1034 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thanks, members. Okay, House Bill 1035 relating to Homeland Security. Recommendation is to pass a House Draft 1. We're going to take the amendment from Office of Information Practices, defect the date to June 30th, 3000, as well as technical non-substantive amendments. Any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1035 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, just a comment on House Bill 1035. I recognize the request for amendment from the holders of the critical infrastructure. However, I think that needs to be in a different chapter of HRS. So I think we'd like to continue that conversation, but just not in the Office of Homeland Security chapter. Okay, thank you. Sorry, members, I forgot to mention that. House Bill 1036 relating to Homeland Security. Recommendation is to pass this out as a House Draft 1, defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Any questions? Okay, sure.
Voting on House Bill 1036 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, the chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Appreciate your time. As there's a long agenda, we're going to have another long agenda next week, Tuesday, the 14th, so we'll see you then. We are adjourned.